At more than 4,500 kilometers long, the Mekong is the biggest river in Southeast Asia and the most controversial. Governments build dams to harness its hydropower and produce electricity. They say dams control the water, preventing flood or drought. China opened a dam in 2016 when Vietnam was desperately short of water. But environmentalists claim they can interfere with fish stocks on which millions downstream depend for food and reduce flow needed to irrigate the rice fields. Managing these competing demands is a difficult job, but it's one that this organization, the Lancang-Mekong Cooperation, is tackling head-on. Many say great progress has been made in only a short time. Looking to develop growing cooperation between Mekong nations is the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang. He's leading discussions here in partnership with Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen. Government leaders from the remaining 4 nations are also attending.
In 2017, Chinese investment in countries along the Lancang-Mekong River increased by 20%. Bilateral trade increased by 16%, and personnel exchanges increased by about 80%. This mechanism is pushing cooperation to a new level.
Mekong and Lancang River, we so-called like the river for peace and for a sustainability growth as well as the economies.
The LMC is the only body that includes all 6 countries the Mekong flows through: China, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia and Vietnam.
My view is that we need to focus on developing the river with a sense of responsibility and sustainability, taking into account the needs of each country. After little more than 2 years of operation, the LMC created by China has already brought Mekong countries closer together.
After little more than 2 years of operation, the LMC created by China has already brought Mekong countries closer together. Reaching consensus is a key aim, and a contentious move to dynamite rocks to clear a route for shipping has been put on hold whilst more investigations take place. Martin Lowe, CGTN, Phnom Penh.
For more on the Second Lancang-Mekong River Cooperation Leaders Meeting, we are joined in our Beijing studio, Ms. He Wenping, Professor at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Welcome to our program, ma'am. And also, we are joined in Singapore, Mr. Lim Tem Wai, Adjunct Research Fellow at the National University of Singapore. Also joining us in Hong Kong, we have Dr. Ruben Mondeja, who is a professor for China Globalization at the IESE Business School from the University of Navarre. Welcome to the 3 of you. I want to start with you, Mr. Lim, about the assessment. Results, any achievement? Do we see any concrete plan from this year's meeting?
I think we see a greater institutionalization because there was a formation of working groups and also committees. And also we see some proposals being put forward, such as the sharing of water during seasons of drought, during seasons of rain. So I think there are some concrete proposal that's being forwarded. And of course, overall there is also a familiarity factor where China and ASEAN will be, China with ASEAN countries in the Lancang region will be able to know each other better.
All right.
So I think those are some of the so-called achievements made.
But Mr. Mondeja, I mean, people are asking, will these baby steps really gonna help us to achieve a bigger goal of regionalization?
Of course, I think the key words here are cooperation, and China has taken a very big proactive step to coordinate the different countries, and also what will happen to the different parts of the river. So what is very important here is for China to explain what they are doing upriver to those who are low river countries, so below the Mekong. So
do you think China explained it well?
Because this can easily become a source of conflict. I think this is the challenge. The fact that the Premier Li Keqiang went there, I think, is already a big step. In other words, what we have to avoid is this will be a repeat of something like a conflict, something like to be seen as if there is a stiff competition between the use of the river. So I think if they can all be on the same page, and this big step that I think the Premier of China, Li Keqiang, going there and trying to explain to the different countries what China has done upriver, is that's a very good step.
Ms. He, of course, the Asians, our culture, are all very indirect in a way. We're very polite in our way of saying things. But Mr. Meng did mention a very important point, which is what about peacemaking mechanism? How to make sure a relatively large country like China would coexist peacefully and bring more benefits together with the work from the others to this region. That is the question.
Yeah, China is now second biggest economy, and comparing with those 5 countries within this Mekong, this mechanism, of course, what China has been doing will naturally have some spillover effect in other countries. So that's why China now put forward this One Belt, One Road initiative. We would like to share our development experiences and also even our foreign exchange reserve to do more investment in other countries, like infrastructure building, those connectivities. So when we look back those past 2 years, this mechanism, actually we have achieved a lot of the early results. For example, I read just a figure saying China-Cambodia cooperation. As many as like 50% of those big main roads in Cambodia has been built by China's help. So that's very amazing. And also China serving as the biggest trade partner and also now becoming the biggest investors in those countries. So which means now a big brother would like to help those younger brothers and then to reach this common development.
Whether China calls itself Big Brother, I'm not very sure about that, Ms. He. But let's go to Mr. Lim and Mr. Meng, because they are coming from different countries. One is from Singapore, the other is from the Philippines. They probably have different ways of looking at things. And Mr. Lim, particularly coming from Singapore, which is quite an influential country, I would say, in the region, even though geographically it is quite small. It is also one of the so-called traditional allies of the United States in the region. We see Singapore-China relations have been going ups and downs over the past few years. So I'm sure Mr. Lin see it from a different perspective. Mr. Lin, has China done that job explanation well? And do you think not only explanation, but rather real work, can countries work together in order to achieve, Mr. Lim?
I think what you said is very relevant, because if you look at ASEAN, or Southeast Asia, is actually divided into 2 big spheres. The first big sphere is maritime Southeast Asia, of which Singapore is also part of, and the other one is overland Southeast Asia, which is Indochina and also Peninsular Malaysia. So I think if China improves its relationship with the Indo-Chinese country, or sometimes called CLMV plus Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar and Vietnam, then I think China will be able to reach out to almost half of the ASEAN membership. And I think this is what they are trying to achieve when it comes to being able to help out in infrastructural development and connectivity. And in this sense, there is accent on 3 very important resources in the Mekong as well as the Lancang region, cooperation region. And these 3 resources are, number 1, fisheries. In the downstream, there's actually a lot of fishes, and many families in the downstream area depend on fisheries for their livelihoods. There is also the resource of hydropower, and China is probably through a Belt and Road Initiative is trying to contribute to this infrastructural area of the Lancang-Mekong Cooperation area. And the third one would be actually water itself. Water is essential to life, and China is trying to work with some of these countries upstream and downstream. It's located in the upstream. The Lancang-Mekong is about 5,000 kilometers. China accounts for 1% of the Lancang River, and if you add in the Mekong River, it's about 4%. So there's a lot of potential for China to cooperate with the downstream so-called economies and countries. I think this is gradually what it's trying to reach out and do with this Lancang-Mekong Cooperation scheme and initiative.
Right.
So, of course, there are many challenges, but this is a good start. Yeah.
This is a good start. We hope it is. Mr. Van der Jaa, of course, in the Lancang-Mekong River area, we see some of the least developing economies, and also we've seen a very big wealth gap among countries, and that is one of those cases we have in this part of the world. So how will this, how people are interacting with one another, countries are looking for common national interests together, be able to help us to provide an interesting case study also for the rest of the world and certainly for the rest of Asia?
Well, if there is friendship among the different countries, then it's easy to understand the intentions of each one. If there is no friendship, then the one that comes immediately is suspicion. So one is trying to, lord over the others. So, the first association that talked about this Mekong River project began in 1992 with the ADB, and look at that, from 1992 to now, 2018, and we still are talking. So it means that really the friendship among the different countries involved in the river, it really hasn't reached a satisfactory level. So this is, I think, the biggest challenge that we have. Let us first establish confidence-building measures so that the suspicion disappears, so that China is not suspected of trying to use its weight over the other countries, and then that when China says something, that there is really a belief that there is a good goal that is being put forward,
right?
And then they have to understand that if the river is well, then everyone is happy.
You see, we are coming back to the very original point made by Mr. Lim at the very beginning of our discussion, which is the baby steps. When we talk about confidence building, when we talk about friendship, it does begin with the baby steps. So, Ms. He, yet the question is, will the speed of establishing confidence, building friendship, really catch up with the urgent need of having one another's backs when emergencies emerge? I think that is the question, because the world is changing fast, as we all know, and this region is really experiencing something that has never been before.
Yeah, that's why now this second, the leaders meeting now put forward moving from a baby step now to the growing. Now a growing speed, no longer like a very small step forward. Now, right now from three pillars, that is the mutual political trust and economic cooperation, and also social and cultural interaction. And within those three big pillars, and then there are 5 areas. One of the areas is called the anti-poverty issue. That exactly fit with the previous points we just discussed. Because even in China, even though we have developed ourselves in a very good way, becoming second biggest economy, actually we are still have quite a lot of people living under the poverty line. That's why Chinese President Xi Jinping saying the anti-poverty issue, like a target anti-poverty strategy, still is the very priority things for all levels Chinese leaders to strive for. So that's why in Cambodia, in those Mekong Lancang cooperation mechanism, so we are help to other countries to do this anti-poverty issue, to share our experiences. So those kind of issues can, I think, dramatically to reduce the so-called suspicions.
This is also one of those functions of South-South cooperation, right, Mr. Van der Jaa? People talk about South-South cooperation, but exactly how to do it, what is the best way to do it, what are some of the experiences, what are some of the lessons we should learn? We don't have very ready examples. This could be an interesting process of exploring all those questions, Mr. Van der Jaa.
Yes, for example, it's said that the river Mekong is the second richest in biodiversity in terms of fish species. So, for example, China probably can give more help in terms of how the Yangtze and the Yellow River were kind of taken care of. So because these are the two long rivers that are within China could serve as like a model of how to preserve a river, and how, because people are talking about sustainability,
right,
that they have to protect the river. So then who is the model?
Where
can
the model?
we get
what can you get? But just to be frank here, Mr. Mondeja and also Ms. He, I want you to respond to that. China has both experiences and a lot of lessons as well when it comes to the protection of the rivers and the qualities of the water. For example, pollution was hanging on the head of China for quite some time. Now the country is really determined to work on sustainability, and it needs strenuous efforts every day. Ms. He, do you think that could be an encouraging sign for China to be even bolder in terms of making efforts about sustainability when it comes to also China's sharing experiences and also lessons with the other countries in our neighborhood?
Yeah, of course, not only those experiences and also the lessons. Both can be regarded as some kind of value things. We can help other countries to get avoid of those repeating those same mistakes we have made. So actually, like our colleagues mentioned, we have like a Yellow River and a Yangtze River, all those longest rivers. We have abundant experience how to handle, like those when the flood season and the drought season, how to make full use of those water resources. So also, like a Yellow River, I think it's becoming dry in some seasons. I passed that river for a number of times. Sometimes I couldn't see any rivers going there. It's completely drought. And also flooding issue, we have gone through a lot of bad experiences when those flood season is on. So actually, I think with this Mekong and also the Lancang River, I think there's one river and gone through 6 countries. So actually, the 6 countries, they all have different experience for how to manage, how to deal with those challenges. Not only China's experience, this is a two-way street.
Right. Mr. Lim, those are beautiful examples set by the other 2 panelists. But, you know, at the end of the day, we all understand it's not just the development. It is also about the strategic future that we are talking about here. When China and some of the neighbor countries, for example, along the Lancang River and also the Mekong River are working hard, some of the others could get also suspicious, particularly those that have been playing quite a significant role. For example, Singapore. Mr. Lim, you know, on that note, what are some of the food for thought you would like to share with us?
I think what the speakers mentioned is very important, that the Chinese have lessons both in terms of innovations that they have done, in especially the Chinese methodology for scientific water management, and also some of the pitfalls they have faced over the decades and in their experience. I think those are very important. But beyond that also, China herself has learned from other countries' experience. Officials, for example, from China have mentioned about the 1961 water agreement between Canada and the U.S. and how they signed a water agreement that helps them apportion the water use in common water bodies between the 2 countries. And this actually helps to reduce the tensions and possible conflicts between the 2 over water resources. So there are also best practices in the world that China has referred to and absorbed in their experience of water management. And all these examples of water conflict mitigation and avoidance would be helpful to China, as well as for China to share with other countries as well. So it's not just sort of restricted to Chinese examples. And in this sense, it would also help to reach out to other stakeholders and best practices in water management around the world.
Right. Even though it is about water management, even though it's about how to avoid natural disasters, things are beginning from these kinds of cooperations. Confidence could be built, we hope, with this mechanism. And for now, I want to thank the three of you for being with us. He Wenping, Lin Tam-Wai, and Ruben Montague. Thank you so much for being with us. And you're watching World Insight with me, coming to you from Beijing on CGTN.